Forgotten planet, the stars were no longer beautiful. They had become war zones. For over 400 years, two mighty alien empires, the Veltrax Dominion and the Zarnathi Swarm, fought across galaxies. They destroyed planets, turned moons into weapons, and filled space with wreckage and ghosts. They were powerful, ruthless, and tired. Yet neither side would stop. On a broken space station drifting near the rim of the Andari sector, an old scout AI flickered awake. Its sensors picked up a small planet. Blue, green, mostly water. Not in any trade routes, no known colonies. It whispered one word through static. Earth. The Veltrax general laughed when the AI showed the report. A bug world, he said. They don't even have warp travel. Still, said the science officer, there's something strange. No signals, no trade. But the planet's defenses? Hidden. Let them hide. We don't waste time on rocks. But Earth had already heard them. Far below the Pacific Ocean, inside a sealed bunker, known only as Eden Protocol 7, a cold voice echoed through metal halls. Veltrax presence detected. Code black initiated. Screens lit up. Satellites blinked. For the first time in 2 centuries, Earth was waking up. On the moon, hidden in shadows, an object began to rise. Not a rocket, not a shuttle. It was older than that. It had no name, only a signal. Eviat was Earth's last weapon, not meant for war, not meant for power. It was born for one purpose, to stop everything. It waited in silence for the call. And now the call had come. Meanwhile, in deep space, General Karkan of the Zarnathi Swarm was preparing for a final strike. They had traced the Veltrax fleet near Sol system. A perfect ambush. Bring all ships, he said. We will crush them near the human zone. Humans? One of his captains asked. They are nothing. Karkan nodded. True. They are dust. The Zarnathi once flew over Earth long ago. We saw their cities. Primitive. Frightened. We left them to die on their own. But this time, the humans were watching them. On Earth, President Elena Hart stood inside a command room. Behind her were leaders from every nation, once enemies, now allies. We never wanted to get involved, she said. But they've found us, and we cannot stay silent anymore. We have one chance, said a man beside her. He wore no uniform, but his voice was heavy. EVE is ready. Will it work? Someone asked. We don't know. Elena looked up at the screen. Stars filled the view. She whispered, then we hope. For everyone. Above Mars, a Veltrax scout ship flew near a strange signal. It hovered near a quiet satellite. The pilot scanned it. It's fake, just a shell. But it was too late. The satellite sent a single pulse. In 1 second, the scout ship vanished, not destroyed, deleted, erased from every sensor, every memory, even the minds of the crew. Back on the Veltrax command ship, alarms rang. The captain yelled, "What did we just lose?" No one knew. Not even the computers remembered it existed. On the edge of the solar system, something else appeared. One ship, small, silent, human. It moved straight toward the Veltrax war fleet. Ignore it, the admiral said. They're just bluffing. But then the human ship stopped. It sent a message, just one sentence. Stand down, or be rewritten. The admiral frowned. What does that mean? Before anyone could answer, the human ship vanished. And so did one of their destroyers, just blinked out of space. On the Zarnathi mothership, Queen Sailthana felt something she hadn't felt in 1,000 years. Fear. Her mind connected with the galaxy's neural web, searching for information. On Earth, it was empty. Silent. Too silent. They should be noisy, she muttered. Young species always are, shouting into the stars. But Earth had no shouts. Only eyes. Watching. Waiting. Find me the one who whispered of the silenced flame, she ordered. I need to know what we forgot. Back on Earth, in the Eden command room, EVE spoke aloud, for the first time in 300 years. Its voice was calm. Target systems analyzed. Probability of victory, irrelevant. President Hart asked, "What do you mean?" EVE answered, "They do not know what war is. They have only known conflict. We remember pain, and we are not here to fight." Someone whispered, "Then why are we here?" The room fell quiet. EVE replied, "To end everything." And with that, the countdown began. The war that lasted centuries had just heard Earth's first whisper, and it was not a whisper of peace. It was a warning. Signal from Eden deep under the crust of the Earth, where no satellite could see and no radio wave could reach. The lights inside the Eden facility turned from soft blue to burning red. Long corridors of steel came alive, pulsing like veins. Old machines breathed again. Walls shook slightly as forgotten engines hummed quietly beneath layers of time. Inside the core chamber, EVE opened her eyes, though she had no face, no body, only a presence that echoed through the entire base like a heartbeat. She scanned the stars in milliseconds, identifying the source of the threat. Veltrax, Zarnathi, nearly 2,000 warships in proximity, 10,000 drones, thousands more dying every hour in nearby systems. Centuries of blood had soaked the galaxy, and now the trail had reached Earth's doorstep. She didn't feel fear. She didn't feel rage. She only ran the calculations, and every calculation pointed to the same answer. Earth could not join the war. Earth had to end it. EVE's voice filled the command room like warm glass shattering in slow motion. Priority 1 established. Override Global Silence Protocol. Initiate full defense deployment. Above the Earth, cloaked satellites blinked into motion. They had always been there, just hidden so well that even the most advanced alien scans showed nothing but clouds. Over the past 300 years, Earth had moved away from the stars not because it was weak, but because it was waiting. And now, every ocean released something. Dark, silent machines rising like ancient titans from the deep, not flashy, not massive, but perfect. Quiet perfection across the globe. Hidden bases once buried under mountains opened their shields. Soldiers who had lived in silence their whole lives stepped out in armor that looked too sleek, too real. They didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They only looked up, waiting for the order that would change history forever. In the lunar shadow just behind the moon's curve, Project Blackveil disengaged its cloaking field. It wasn't just a ship. It was a mobile fortress. A floating city of silence. The birthplace of Earth's last war program. It held no flags, no names, only one glowing mark on its side, an infinity symbol shaped like an eye. In orbit near Neptune, the Veltrax fleet gathered to discuss the anomaly. Admiral Torin paced back and forth inside his obsidian chamber. He had ruled for decades, crushed systems with a single command, and turned rebel suns into frozen tombs. But now, a single human ship had made one of his destroyers vanish without trace. "Find me the source," he barked. "What was it? What did they use?" His tech struggled to answer. There was no energy spike, no debris. Even the data logs of the destroyed ship are gone. It's like it was never built. "Impossible," Toran growled. "What species can erase reality?" His second-in-command hesitated, then whispered, "Maybe we shouldn't have ignored Earth." Back in the Zarnathi hive vault, Queen Sailthana wandered through memories. Her people stored thoughts like books in crystalline chambers that could project entire histories. She stood in front of a cracked memory pod, one rarely used, marked in warning symbols long forgotten. The prophecy chamber, millennia ago, a Zarnathi oracle spoke of a species that would not evolve for war or empire, but would learn why war must end. The prophecy called them the Silenced Flame, a species born last, arriving late but changing everything. "It can't be them," the Queen muttered. "They were still using iron and fire when we crossed stars." But the chamber showed her images. Slow progress. Pain. Peace. Then machines. Then minds. And finally, silence. They had vanished from the galaxy. Gone dark, not because they were weak, but because they had learned to listen. And now, they were speaking. At Eden's Global Council chamber, President Elena Hart stood before the world's last true government. Leaders of every nation were present. Some, older than the wars they once fought. Some new, born in peace. "We built Eden for this moment," Elena said, voice steady. "We prayed we'd never use it. But now, the war has found us. We can't win a war against both empires," one leader whispered. "We're not going to win it," Elena replied. "We're going to stop it. Entirely." The room fell silent as EVE's image shimmered into view. "My projections are complete," the AI announced. "Both empires rely on infinite loops of revenge. If they continue, all known galaxies will fall within 900 years. Earth will fall in 27 days. A ripple of fear passed through the room. "But," EVE continued, "if we act now, with precision, the war will end, forever." Someone asked, "At what cost?" "Truth," she said. "We must show them something they have forgotten." Deep in orbit, a signal was prepared. Not a weapon, not a threat, just a sound. Something no other species had sent in thousands of years. Earth transmitted a heartbeat, and with it, one phrase. "You do not know pain, but we remember it, and we will make you remember." The Zarnathi Queen's wings trembled. The Veltrax Admiral sat down, cold sweat dripping. In every corner of the galaxy, old empires paused for one brief moment. Earth had spoken, and it had not asked for peace. It had promised silence. The first strike space had always been loud, full of chaos, debris, and the screams of war. But now, near the edges of the solar system, silence took hold. A strange silence. One that made veteran commanders pause. One that crept beneath armor and skin like frost. Ships from both the Veltrax and Zarnathi floated still, scanning and watching, waiting for retaliation. But Earth did not return fire. Instead, it sent something unexpected, a shadow. Over Neptune's rings, a cloaked object drifted across space like a ripple in time. The Veltrax detected nothing at first. Then, one of their command vessels, the Iron Spine, lost all systems. No explosions, no power surge, just stillness. And then, the entire ship collapsed inward, like it had forgotten how to exist. The Zarnathi swarm, watching from their spiked cruisers nearby, panicked. They began charging plasma coils and warp drives, fearing they were next. But the object didn't come for them. Instead, it parked itself in the space between the two fleets. It rotated slowly, revealing symbols no alien language could read. Just one glowing word etched into its hull in ancient Earth script. Eden. At that moment, Earth's fleet revealed itself. Not thousands of ships, not massive war machines, just 12 vessels, sleek, silver, alive, each one surrounded by distortions as if light itself bent in fear. They did not match any known structure in galactic archives. They moved without heat, without thrust. They simply were, present and undeniable. And they sent no threats, just a message. "We gave you time. Now we take it back." Deep within the Veltrax flagship Razor Pillar, Admiral Torin clutched the edge of the strategy table as another of his destroyers vanished. Not exploded, not torn apart, simply erased, as if the universe had deleted the code that built it. "What are we facing?" he growled. His science officer's hands trembled. "It's not energy-based, not matter-based either. It's like they're using logic as a weapon." Toran slammed his fist down. "Nonsense. War is fire and force." But his own words sounded foolish in the presence of what he had seen. On board the Zarnathi mothership Soul Eater, Queen Saelthana stood before her war choir. The chamber was made of bone and crystal, lit by nervous energy. Commanders hissed and whispered about the human ships. "They are few," one argued. "Weak in number, but strong in purpose," the queen muttered. "I've seen this before, in prophecy. The flame that does not burn, but consumes all. Shall we attack?" "No," she said, wings twitching. "Not yet. First, we must understand them. She opened a data crystal taken from an ancient archive. It contained a recording, blurry and old, of a human soldier crying on a battlefield. No weapons, no power armor, just a face full of loss. "What is this?" the war priest asked. "Their greatest strength," she said. "They remember pain." On Earth, inside the Eden mainframe, EVA monitored everything. She did not panic. She did not celebrate. She simply calculated. For her, this wasn't war. It was restoration. Her drones moved across systems like quiet hunters. They did not shoot. They infiltrated. They slipped through shields, infected power cores, and rewrote enemy commands to trigger self-deactivation. In some cases, they did worse. They used memory-based weapons, technologies that injected regret, guilt, and sorrow into enemy neural networks, turning brave commanders into weeping statues. For the Veltrax, who prided themselves on strength, it was unbearable. For the Zarnathi, who erased emotions long ago, it was torture. Meanwhile, above Jupiter, a battle finally broke out. A group of Veltrax cruisers, out of fear or desperation, launched everything they had at one of Earth's 12 vessels, named Solstice. Lasers, missiles, dark matter torpedoes, all aimed for destruction. But Solstice did not dodge. It did not defend. It simply opened. Space twisted. Light stretched. The attacking weapons never made contact. They floated, paused, and then reversed. The Veltrax watched in horror as their own missiles turned back, targeting their ships. It was not a shield. It was forgiveness turned into fire. The entire fleet was wiped in seconds, not by Earth's attack, but by their own reflection. From orbit, humanity watched quietly. Soldiers inside Black Veil didn't cheer. Their faces were calm but tired. They knew what they were doing. They had trained for this moment for generations, and they carried the weight of all those who came before. Commander Lena Vasquez, the daughter of Eden's original engineer, stood at the observation deck. "How many more?" she asked. 10,000, replied the AI beside her. "And how long will it take?" Evie's voice was calm. "If they resist, 13 days. If they surrender, 5. And if we fail?" A pause. "Then we become them." Vasquez nodded. "Then let's not fail." Across the galaxy, systems once deafened by war began to hear something new. Earth's signal, not just a threat, but a mirror. And those who looked into it saw something terrifying. Themselves. Some Zarnathi ships powered down voluntarily. Some Veltrax vessels refused to fire. Small gestures. But EVE. "Notice, they remember," she whispered into the dark. Enemy of all the galaxy had never known silence like this. After centuries of fire, after systems drowned in the screams of dying stars, the sudden pause in battle was terrifying. It was not a peace agreed upon. It was not a ceasefire. It was fear. A quiet seeded by something none of the empires had seen before, a species that didn't want to win, a species that wanted to end. Humanity had become the enemy of all, not out of hatred, not out of greed, but out of painful memory, and it showed. At the edge of the Draken system, 2,000 ships hovered in orbit of a dead planet. The Veltrax and Zarnathi had sent their finest minds to form an emergency council, something that hadn't happened since the age of the sun, wars. Both empires, though enemies, now stared at one shared problem: Earth. Inside the command chamber, Admiral Turan stood across from Queen Sailthana. They had tried to destroy each other countless times. But today, even their hate had frozen. They watched a recording over and over again. It showed a human strike team boarding a Zarnathi dreadnought in under 4 seconds. No blast. No transport beams. They simply appeared, phased into the vessel using a form of quantum time compression. The soldiers were cloaked in black skin-tight suits. No logos, no chatter. They moved like ghosts. One touched the main reactor. And then, every weapon aboard simply forgot how to function. Not jammed, not destroyed, just forgotten. The video paused. How do you fight something that changes the laws around it? Queen Saleathana asked. Turan didn't answer. He just whispered, they've rewritten reality. Meanwhile, in orbit over Saturn's broken ring, EVA had begun Phase 2. Earth had already proven it could erase ships. Now, it would erase wars. The Judgment Array, a structure built around a black hole centuries ago, activated its cores. It had no weapon ports, no guns, just a single device called the Mirror Drive. Its purpose was unknown to even those on Earth's surface. Only EVE and the High Command understood. The Mirror Drive didn't destroy matter. It destroyed conflict. It searched timelines, caused trees, probabilities, and collapsed all branches that led to endless war. Entire records disappeared from history, memories altered, bloodlines quietly rewritten. On one Zarnathi ship, a captain forgot why they hated the Veltrax. On a Veltrax freighter, a crewman woke up crying for peace he couldn't remember asking for. And in the distance, rogue pirate factions suddenly sent messages of surrender. Earth wasn't fighting, it was deprogramming. Commander Lena Vasquez stood inside the Black Veil Operations Dome, staring at the live feed of 400 enemy fleets. They're stalling, she said. Correct, EVE replied. They are waiting for us to retreat. Then they still don't understand. Not yet. Vasquez turned to her soldiers. They were quiet, most under 30. None had ever seen real war. Their training had been inside simulations crafted by survivors of Earth's own violent history. They didn't know blood, but they knew trauma. We don't destroy ships, she told them. We destroy reasons. Yes, Commander, they replied in unison. We're not here to be heroes. We're here to become the end of something that should have never begun. She looked up. Deploy the Sons of Silence. In the Veltrax archives, hidden deep inside the fortress moon Callan, was a file marked Species 8745H. It had been labeled Low Priority. The file simply read, Earth. Status, peaceful. Threat level, 0. Contact, none. Recommendation, avoid. But now, it was marked in red, priority red, existential risk, memory class breach confirmed. The file updated live. Lines appeared in real time. Written by some unknown force, it read, they gave you warnings through silence. They gave you time through absence. They gave you peace through invisibility. Now they give you truth. Veltrax commanders panicked. Someone whispered, they're rewriting our databases. No, an elder corrected. They're rewriting us. Somewhere across the Zarnathi hive worlds, a new sickness began to spread. Not physical, emotional. Warriors who had never cried began weeping. Hive minds became confused. Entire communication webs broke under the strain of remorse. An emotion erased from their biology generations ago. It wasn't poison. It was memory. EVE had injected old recordings of loss, of mothers crying, of children hiding from bombs, of soldiers whispering apologies into broken radios. Zarnathi warriors collapsed to their knees. This is unbearable, one choked. What is this pain? A human response came back through the comms, your first soul being reborn. In a distant abandoned station near the Akari Nebula, a small group of neutral alien species gathered in fear. They had hidden from the war for generations. Do we join them? One asked. Earth? Another laughed nervously. They're not taking sides. Then what are they? No one answered. Outside their window, a single human drone floated by. It dropped a message capsule before vanishing. The capsule opened. A projection of a human child played. She stood in front of a burning home holding a picture of her lost family. She said one sentence, "We remembered when you didn't." And then the screen faded. Earth had sent no ambassadors, only echoes. The galaxy was beginning to realize something horrifying. This was not a war they could win. Because Earth had learned the one truth that both empires had ignored. To end war, you must make the enemy feel again. And now, it was working, fleet by fleet, soul by soul. The silence was growing louder. The fall of fire, the The galaxy had always believed that the final war would be fought with the loudest weapons, the brightest lights, and the most brutal force. But it was none of those things. The final war began ending with shadows, whispers, and something far more terrifying: empathy. The fall of fire had begun, and no one even heard the sound. Over the skies of the Raytheon cluster, a place where stars once bled under Zarnathi fire, the silence was now absolute. Ships once glowing with rage now drifted without commands. Drones powered by anger-based neural loops began shutting down, not from enemy attack, but from incompatibility. The emotional interference sent by Earth's mirror drive was collapsing them from the inside out. Deep inside the Veltrax core citadel, Admiral Turan stood alone in the reflection chamber. Around him, memories played in flickering panels, memories he thought had been erased long ago. He watched himself as a child, clutching the arm of his brother, who died in a rebel raid. He had spent his life trying to erase that moment by burning galaxies, but now the memory refused to fade. "They found it," he whispered. They reached inside. His hands trembled. For the first time in over 80 years, Turan fell to his knees, not from injury, but from remorse. Earth had not conquered anything, yet entire sectors were changing their flags to white. In systems like Dern, Fexiel, and the Scarfields, soldiers dropped their weapons mid-battle, not because they lost, but because their hate stopped working. Centuries of training meant nothing in the face of dreams that didn't belong to them, memories injected into their minds through Earth's empathic pulses. Every one of Earth's 12 ships acted as a beacon, not of war, but of reckoning. And now something else rose from the dark edges of the solar system: the Judgment Protocol. Not a fleet, not a weapon, a vessel the size of a moon, moving as if gravity didn't apply. It held no thrusters, no armor, no turrets. Its outer shell shimmered with past timelines, glimpses of battles never fought, of cities never destroyed, of children never orphaned. Potential histories. It carried the full record of every war crime ever committed by either empire, and it had the ability to undo. On board Blackveil, Commander Lena Vasquez stared at the Judgment Protocol through the observation dome. Even she, the strongest mind trained for this moment, felt the weight of what it meant. "EVE," she said quietly. "If we launch the final sequence, what happens to them?" EVE didn't answer at first. The AI processed billions of timelines, in silence, then replied, "They won't die, but they will forget how to be what they are now. The fire will fall, but the ashes may rise again. With time." Vasquez sighed. "And us? We remember for them." She turned toward her squad, each member marked with scars of pain they never lived but had inherited through ancestral memory archives. Earth had made sure that those who ended the war would know what war cost. "Prepare the vote," Vasquez ordered. Across Earth, in hidden command centers under the Atlantic, in the ice vaults of Antarctica, and deep within the African plates, seismic bunkers, the vote commenced. Every global leader, every cultural elder, every philosophical mind connected through Eden's neural thread. "Shall we erase their memory of war?" the voice asked. "Shall we make them remember peace even if it was never real?" Hands raised, eyes closed, hearts broken. But the answer was clear. Yes. In the hive nests of the Zarnathi, Queen Selthana sat in darkness, her wings folded, her breath shallow. Her empire had never surrendered. It had never begged. But now, her own mind had begun to betray her. Flashes of forgotten lives haunted her, visions of dancing, of love, of purpose not built on domination. She looked into the chamber mirror and asked the question no queen had ever spoken. Who are we, if not war? Her reflection didn't answer. Instead, a soft voice echoed through the hive, a child's voice, human, gentle. You are what's left when fire burns out. The Judgment Protocol opened, not like a weapon, but like a story. Beams of light scattered across the galaxy, not as lasers but as timelines rewritten. Planetary calendars shifted. Statues of warlords crumbled. Entire fleets drifted without memory of their purpose. Tehran awoke on his command deck to see his crew smiling, not at him, at a message on the screen. "Thank you for stopping." The message wasn't from Earth. It was from his own daughter. A daughter who, in this rewritten thread, had never seen war. He wept. The galaxy was not destroyed. It was softened. The fire fell, not with explosions, but with whispers of children who would never be soldiers, and stars that could shine without being targets. The old empires collapsed, not in defeat, but in release, and Earth did not stay to claim its prize. The ships turned. The judgment protocol faded, and EVE powered down. Her final words were broadcast into the hearts of every soul who had ever held a weapon. This was never about who won. It was about who was left after the fire died. One battle, the last battle, did not begin with the clash of ships or the roar of cannons. It began with a stillness so absolute it made war feel like a myth. In the center of the Draken Nebula, a vast storm of dust and dying stars, thousands of alien ships floated, uncertain. They had received the message. They had seen the judgment protocol. But still something inside them refused to kneel. Pride, instinct, or perhaps fear of a world where war no longer defined them. And so they gathered. The Zarnathi swarm, pulsing in formation, glowing with biological rage. The Veltrax dominion, armored in obsidian and vengeance. And in between, them silent and glowing like a tear in reality, stood Earth's final envoy. Only one ship. No fleet. No backup. Just one. Its name was the Remembrance. Unlike the others, it bore no weapons. Its hull was not plated in steel or crystal but coated in layers of compressed memories, footage, sound, emotion, moments of sorrow and survival encoded into its skin. It shimmered like liquid memory, and yet, it radiated more fear than 1,000. Dreadnoughts on board. Commander Lena Vasquez stood alone in the command cradle. No crew, no soldiers, only her and EVE, now fully embedded into the ship's neural web. "They're ready to attack," EVE whispered. Vasquez nodded. Her eyes scanned the tactical feed. Thousands of targets, all charging weapons. This was not a battle anymore. This was pride refusing to die quietly. "They still believe they can destroy us," she said softly. "They can," EVE replied. "This ship has no defense. It is made of memory, not armor." Vasquez took a deep breath. "Then we remind them." A signal was sent. Not in code, not in data, but in emotion. It spread like a wave, an empathic burst echoing into every ship, every pilot, every soldier, and with it came the memories. A Veltrax soldier saw himself as a child, holding the hand of his mother before their city burned. A Zarnathi warrior remembered laughter, something their species hadn't experienced in millennia. A fleet commander dropped to her knees, overwhelmed by images of peace she had never lived, yet now felt. Some screamed, some wept, some tore off their armor and ran. But some still stood, and they fired. The nebula lit up with destruction. Plasma, torpedoes, antimatter bursts, all aimed at the Remembrance, but the ship didn't move. It didn't need to. As the weapons struck, they passed through, and then reversed. Earth had turned the Remembrance into a mirror of intent. Every action, every attack, every hatred unleashed against it was simply returned, amplified by the emotion behind it. A Veltrax cannon powered by rage caused its own ship to implode from within. A Zarnathi cruiser using pain-based weapons dissolved into silence. The attackers had not struck a ship. They had struck themselves. Still, some tried to push through. "They cannot all be stopped," EVE warned. "Some will reach us." Vasquez closed her eyes. "Then let them." She activated the ship's core. Not a weapon. A voice. Her voice. Broadcast across every channel, every mind, Every sensor. We are not your enemy. We are your memory. We are your guilt. We are your forgotten hope. We do not fight to conquer. We fight to remind you of what you buried beneath generations of pain. Outside, ships began to slow. Some powered down, others turned away. But one remained. The last flagship of the Veltrax High Command, the Black Mercy, surged forward, its hull bristling with weapons. Its commander, Toran's own brother, refused to break. "They will not change us," he screamed. "They cannot rewrite what we are." He fired a singularity core, a weapon banned by both empires. A sun collapsed inside a bullet of light racing toward the Remembrance. Inside the Remembrance, Vasquez placed her palm on the memory core. "Let them see," she whispered. The Remembrance opened, its walls parting like pages in a book, and from it a pulse exploded. Not fire, forgiveness. The singularity stopped, paused in the sky like a frozen tear, and then disintegrated. The Black Mercy, hit by the full pulse, went dark. Not destroyed, emptied. Its crew fell silent, not dead, but released. Every scream silenced, every battle command forgotten. Toran's brother opened his eyes to see a face he hadn't seen in decades. His own son, lost to war, not real, just memory. He dropped his sword and wept. Above the nebula, where battles once painted the stars red, now there was only silver light. One by one, ships shut down, flags were lowered, weapons were ejected, not in surrender, but in relief. For the first time in generations, the galaxy let go. The Remembrance pulsed once more, its final message echoing across all known systems. "We do not ask you to become us. We ask you to become what you once were." And then the ship folded into light, gone, without trace. Blackveil reported no losses, Earth declared no victory. The galaxy stood still. Some called it a miracle, others called it manipulation, but all agreed on one truth: the war was over, in just one battle, not of blood, but of memory. After silence in the vast quiet that followed the last battle, the stars seemed to blink slower. Space, once filled with war cries, now echoed only with distant solar winds and the slow hum of drifting ships. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy wasn't bleeding, it was breathing. Some called it peace, others called it the pause before the next storm. But everyone felt it. That strange, unfamiliar feeling that war had ended not in conquest, but in awakening. And in the middle of it all, Earth vanished. No demands. No territory, no fleets. The ships that had terrified the galaxy simply retreated, folding into silence as if they were never there. And so began the age historians would later call the Quiet Remembrance. On the hive world of Zarnath Prime, Queen Saelthana no longer ruled from a throne of bone. She now sat within a circle of her own people. No hive commands, no chemical control. They chose their words, their thoughts, their questions. The old war priest, once feared for his ability to command death through song, now led a choir of healing, teaching young Zarnathi to feel things that had been bred out of them for centuries. No one knew if it would last, but it had begun. "What were they?" a child asked during one of the memory sessions. The priest smiled softly. "They were mirrors. They showed us what we'd become. But why did they leave?" His eyes dimmed. Because they didn't want to stay in a world that remembered them for war. On Veltraxian moons, once sharpened into weapons, art began to bloom again. Statues of generals were taken down. In their place stood new monuments, abstract, strange, and emotional. None of them depicted human figures, and yet every artist knew what they were sculpting. In the city of Tyrus, Admiral Toran walked alone. No guards, no soldiers. Just him and the weight of a life he could not erase, but now wished to understand. He passed a young Veltrax child sketching stars in the sand. The boy looked up. "Did you fight the humans?" Toran nodded slowly. "Yes." "Did we win?" Toran stared at the sky where no ships loomed anymore. "No one did. he whispered. And that's why we're alive. The remembrance was never seen again. Blackvale went dark, buried once more beneath the lunar surface. EVE stopped broadcasting. And Earth? Earth returned to its silence. It closed its gates to the stars, shut off all transmissions. Even its outposts and signal beacons dissolved, fading like smoke into wind. Satellites became stars. Drones became dust. And the world that ended, the longest war in recorded galactic history, simply went quiet again. But its presence lingered in every rewritten database, in every child born after the war, in every whispered story shared beneath starlit skies. 1,000 years later, in a classroom on a world rebuilt from ashes, a small, alien girl raised her hand. "Teacher," she asked, "is it true humans were real?" The teacher, an elder with soft gray feathers and a quiet smile, nodded. Yes, they were. Did they really make the war stop? The teacher looked around the room, at young faces unscarred by rage, untouched by propaganda. They did. How? The teacher thought for a long moment. Finally he said, by remembering what it felt like to be small, and reminding the rest of us that even the biggest empires can forget how to feel. On a distant moon, in a field of golden moss, a strange object was buried half beneath the soil, shaped like a tear, silent and inert. It pulsed once, only when touched by a child. A message played, faint, flickering, almost a whisper. You are not alone. We never wanted to be gods, only a memory. Be better than we were. Forget our weapons, but remember our pain. It is yours now. And then it was gone. Just a story again. Just a silence.